All right. Hello, my loves. Thank you so much for your patience as we were just getting a couple of tech things set up. So as you can see, you are all on mute with your videos off. However, when we get to the Q&A portion at the end, you are more than welcome to unmute yourselves. You're more than welcome to put yourself on camera. If you prefer to be a little bit more private, let's just say you're always welcome to use the chat box. You can type in questions as we go along. You can type in comments. You can type in feedback. You can type in ahas. Please, please, please do that. But for me, what I have learned about myself in order to give you the best experience is that if I move through my notes, move through the presentation, and then we save questions till the end. And so that's another reason why I asked you to grab pen and paper so that if something comes up for you, you can write it down. And then you can type it in or unmute yourself at the end. And also, because we have 50 women from around the world joining for this, a lot of you can't make it live. I completely understand. And so that's another reason why I want you to take notes. I want you to write down your questions. You can submit them to me via email if you're not able to make any of the times live. I have a couple of questions here just to get us started. I'm curious to know where in the world you are and what your relationship status is. For those of you that are not here live, that are watching the replay, you can always tell me over email. You can comment below this video of the replay or I guess that would really be it, right? Like it helps me to get a feel, and I can also adjust timings in the future because I had a lot of women in Europe and Australia. They're like, sorry, Emerald, like that is the wrong time for me. So taking that into consideration, today and tomorrow are 5 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Eastern. Thursday is 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern. But what I did for our Tuesday final Q&A coaching session, we'll get into the high caliber date accelerator process I teach my clients. That time is going to be at 1 p.m. Mountain, 3 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. London. So hopefully that will accommodate some of the schedules for you wonderful ladies who are abroad. And if you're not able to make anything live and you're only ever on the replays, totally cool. Please know that, again, you can always respond via email if you have any questions that you would like me to address in the upcoming trainings. So with all that being said, ladies, I know some of you are now starting to answer the poll. So for those of you just jumping in, just curious to know where in the world you live and what your relationship status is. And then also, just so that you know where the chat box is, drop your favorite emoji in the chat box. Okay, I just want to make sure you are well oriented to the Zoom world while I share my screen here with you. And my first question is, I want to make sure, can you see the screen? And can you still see me? And yes, my otter is taking notes so that we will have the summary as well, an additional benefit for you. So do me a little favor before I continue. Let me know that you can see me. Let me know that you can see the screen. Okay, Rachel says yes and yes. Ramsey says yes and yes. Oh, we have a unicorn. We have a kissy face. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Okay, Monica says yes. Great. So I'm going to close the chat box, and that's another reason why I want you to save your questions to the end, because I really want to ensure that I don't miss anything. So let's get into it because I respect all of your time in addition to mine. All right, magnetic dating. A 3-day experience for high-achieving women to meet more high-quality men and get snatched off the market. I looked at everyone who signed up, and I'm pretty sure I know all of you, but if there's a couple here that this is your first time with me and you don't know who I am, one slide, that's it. I'm a love coach. I help single, successful women who have their shit together, except for in the love department. Simple as that. And I've been doing this for 7 years. I have worked with hundreds of women personally and tens of thousands more in my courses and programs to help them manifest the loving and supportive relationship they deserve and desire. And I have a process called the Magnetic Femme Process. And I am confident it is going to work for you because it works for everyone who applies the process. Simple as that. And today, you're going to learn just how far or close you are to the relationship that you desire and what it is that needs to shift and change for you to get the relationship that you desire. All right, so before we get into that, let me share with you just a little bit more about the magnetic femme process so you can learn a little bit more about me. So, the first thing I teach my clients is how to raise their standards, raise the bar, raise their expectations. And many of you are familiar with this, I am sure. Now, what tends to happen as we get older and we see our friends partner up, settle down, get married, and we're the ones that are still single, right? You're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, you're in your 40s. At every age, I've seen it. And you can start to wonder maybe what's wrong with me. Maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe I am being too picky, right? And it might even be reinforced by your girlfriends. I hear that from my clients all the time. They're like, oh, you're asking for too much. That type of person doesn't exist. The challenge with that, though, is that most of those women are not actually truly satisfied in their relationship. They have settled. And I'm not here to say what is right or wrong. What I am here to tell you is that I believe you can have whatever it is that you want, and I support my clients in getting that. And so that's why the very first pillar that I stand upon is raising the bar and raising your expectations, because if you settle, you will not be happy. Simple as that. Now, when I say raise your expectations and give you the tools to meet these new higher caliber men, spoiler alert, a big part of these tools involve tools for you to work on yourself. Because I speak a lot about getting that high caliber match, but the truth is you need to be that high caliber match. And in many ways you are. However, there are probably some little things that need to be tweaked based on what I've seen and noticed with my clients in the last 7 years. Communication, boundaries, self-love, confidence, like even the most successful women that I have worked with, like VP of like tens of thousands of people, organizations, when it comes to love, they fumble with really knowing who they are, what they want, speaking it, asking it, being vulnerable, setting boundaries, settling in general, right? And so it's okay that you have some things to work on. I am here to help my clients get ready for the relationship that they desire. Simple as that. And so that's why I say raise your expectations, because if you settle, you'll never be happy. You just simply won't. You'll turn into the woman who is naggy, who is nitpicky, who's the bitch, who's criticizing, who's condescending. And part of the reason that 50% of marriages end in divorce, and that number goes up to 67% for the second marriage, because people haven't learned. They think, oh, well, let me just get rid of this person and bring the next one in. But if you haven't changed, the relationship won't change. All right, I'm getting a little bit off course here, but what I want to say is raise the bar, ask for more, and be very honest with yourself and make sure you're being that woman as well. The second pillar of the magnetic femme process is letting go of control. Now, this is hard for all human beings, I'll be honest with you, not just for a successful type A woman. The thing is, when you are a single woman or a single man, you are used to being in control. You're used to doing it all on your own. You have to, right? Like you're a single woman, you got to go to work, make money, pay the bills, live your life. But the challenge is that when we're talking masculine and feminine energy or just human to human, if you bring that same energy into a relationship and into dating, it's going to turn off potential suitors because nobody wants to be controlled. As simple as that, right? And so if you have this agenda, if you're controlling the timeline and how it should go and the amount of timeline of the dates of when this should happen and that should happen, rather than just being in the process, then that can be a big block. And I've seen this with my clients time and time again when they try to control the timing, when they try to control when their person shows up, what happens is they end up in the wrong relationship because they're like, well, it needs to happen by 35 years old, for example. Or if they decide it needs to happen by 35 years old and it hasn't, they can also become bitter or jaded or close off their heart and be like, well, then it's never going to happen. And so having a timeline, being in control is one of the biggest blocks in dating that I have seen with my clients that's preventing them from getting what they want. And then the third pillar of the magnetic femme process is mastering feminine attraction. So this is another thing that might be a buzzword that you've heard a lot lately around masculine and feminine energy. We have both of these energies inside of us at all times. And what I see with single women is they're really showing up in their masculine energy of I'm trying to control, I'm trying to lead, I'm trying to impress or win over his respect. And that's not to say that your man won't be impressed by you or that he won't respect you. But what I am saying is when you're going after dating in the exact same energy as, let's say, your career or finances, it can be exhausting because you're doing, you're forcing, you're pushing, you're striving on. And the beautiful thing is when you really learn how to be in your feminine energy, how to soften into your feminine energy, it's effortless, it's magic, it's magnetic. Hence the term magnetic dating and the magnetic femme process. So that's a little insight into my work and what it is that I do with my clients in order to help them get and keep a really loving and harmonious and supportive relationship that stands the test of time. Because no relationship is just going to be handed to you and be effortless. There are skill sets that you'll need to acquire. But for now, let's get into magnetic dating. All right, so how close or how far away are you to finding love? So I have a self-identification process where it goes spinster, maiden, princess, empress. Now, I can already guess that none of you are spinster energy, or else you wouldn't be here. And you'll see what I mean when I describe spinster to you. But I can also say none of you are yet in your empress energy, because empress is, I have my emperor by my side, I am ruling my domain. And so when we go into the self-identification process, you'll be somewhere between maiden and princess, or maybe you'll bounce back and forth between the two. And one thing I want you to know is that wherever you self-identify, it isn't good or bad. Even if you self-identify as spinster, as some of the areas or attributes of spinster, it still isn't wrong or bad. You don't need to judge or guilt or shame yourself, but you just need to be aware of where you're at and where you want to be and what needs to shift and change. And that's what we're getting into today. Where are you at? Where do you want to be? And how do you get there? A GPS has 2 points, where you are and where you're going. Doesn't ask where you were yesterday. And it's the exact same thing with love coaching. It doesn't really matter what happened yesterday. It doesn't matter the dates you had in your past, the relationships you've had in your past, unless you carry that baggage forward. The other option, learn the lessons. That's where a coach comes in, help you to see your lessons, learn your lessons, see your blind spots, move beyond your blind spots, and get what it is that you want. So let's go into the different type of, I guess, energies, right? Identifications. So the first level is spinster. And if you're not there now, you've probably been there. I've been there. Like, feel free to type in the chat box, yes, if you have been here. You're single or you're unhappily dating. You are talking to your girlfriend, you're complaining about men, but you're not willing to take any advice and change. Or maybe you have a girlfriend in your mind that's, oh my God, she's always in the same relationship with a different guy, but the same thing. And she always complains, but she doesn't take my advice. And it's like, rah. Or maybe you're following accounts that talk shit about men. There's plenty of those out there. You're putting up a wall or a barrier in regards to men in social settings because you don't trust them. You're judging men before you even get to know them. You're making up the story of like, yeah, they're probably like this. He's probably married. He's probably an asshole. You think you know it all. All men are like this. All the good ones are taken. All men are shit, right? Like these are things I've heard from very wounded women. It's the victim mentality. It's all a men's fault. Every relationship I've ever been in, it's always the guy's fault. Which means she's not willing to take personal responsibility for her role in the relationships. So again, have you ever been in that spinster energy? Yes or no? Type it in the chat box. And again, there's no judgment there. I think we've even been there, maybe even like a night or two, a week or two after a breakup, after a divorce, after getting your heart broken, after finding out he cheated on you or she cheated on you, whatever it is. We've all been here, okay? It's just important not to stay there, right? Like you can shift and move between all of them. And let's say at one point you were in your Empress energy. You did have your partner. You were like, woohoo, life's great. And then betrayal. He cheats on you. And for a little while, you're back in the spinster and you're like, well, all men are fucking shit. They're not. What are your lessons? What do you need to learn? I'm going to share with you how do you up level to get to maiden, to princess, and back to empress again, but in a whole different energy because you've learned, you have experience under your belt. So that's the level one, the spinster. And again, I don't think any of you are there right now, or else you probably wouldn't be here, but you might know a couple of girlfriends that are there, or you've probably been there yourself at a certain stage in life. Now, the second level, I coin maiden. Oh, and I guess I didn't show you, I mean, you can see the picture. I think like that witch energy, and this is the witch in Sleeping Beauty, right? Like she's got her apple, she's going to poison her, like just kind of jaded, right? Whereas the maiden, I'm thinking Cinderella washing the floors. Okay. So she's dreaming about the prince. She's dreaming about going to the ball. She's in that era. She's optimistic about finding love. She's single or dating, like maybe ferociously swiping right every night, probably following love coaches, listening to podcasts, reading books. However, what this woman could also be is she could be anxiously attached to a past lover. She'd be fixated on a current guy, whether they're dating or not. She could be in a situationship. She's probably downloading PDFs like how to get your ex back. Maybe she's dating to make the ex jealous or fill a void. Not emotionally available. Still a little scared of being hurt. So there's a wall around your heart. You're afraid of being open and vulnerable. Or you're searching for someone outside of you to complete you, like the Jerry Maguire scene, you complete me. Maybe you're in a friends with benefits, hoping it will turn into something more. So you're not yet in the princess stage. You're still the maiden. It's almost like I think about myself in high school, really, or even college. Like I was just so desperate for love. Like I wasn't jaded necessarily when it came to men. I was optimistic, but I was still, and I don't know what kind of way to say this, I was still a little fucked up. I was still a little anxious. I was still making it all about the guy, or I was obsessive about a guy I couldn't be with, right? Or had that friends with benefits, like someone was better than no one. And so have you ever been here? Yes or no? Feel free to comment in the chat box. I've been there plenty of times. And it wasn't until my early 20s that I really started digging into personal development and started beyond following coaches, like enrolling in their programs and really starting to learn. And that's when I up leveled from maiden to princess. Okay, we've got a couple women being vulnerable, honest. Yes, still sort of there. Yeah, and that's okay. I'm going to share with you how to shift, how to up level. Okay, again, I really want to make this clear. We don't want to judge ourselves. We don't want to guilt ourselves. We don't want to shame ourselves. It just makes it worse. So just accept this is where I am. This is where I want to be. It's okay when the feelings come up. It's okay when the thoughts come up. It's okay to feel hurt. It's okay to feel like you need to put a wall up to protect yourself. That's all okay. And there's the ability to shift. So beyond maiden is princess. And there's two things. Like it could be that you're single and you're not meeting men at your level, right? So you've done a lot of work. And it's like one day my prince will come. But you might also be in a relationship. But he's a prince, not an emperor, not a king. Maybe you're trying to change some things about him. Or maybe he's not fully choosing you. Or he's like, have some things, but not all the things. And these are some examples I've seen with past clients. Like he's handsome, he's successful, but you don't feel chosen or safe or good around him. Or he's everything that you want, but he doesn't make any money and he doesn't have a provider mentality. Or he's still legally married and you don't know if he's actually going to leave his wife, but he's everything I want, Emyrald, right? So the princess stage is you've done a lot of work, you have evolved, you're at a great spot, but you still might be in kind of a complicated relationship, or you're single thinking like, well, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. Where's that guy, right? Like I hear this a lot. Well, I haven't met anybody at my level, at my caliber. That could be princess, but that could also be maiden. That could also be you deflecting and putting a wall up around your heart. Or princess could be, I've done all of this work, so where's my match? So it can be both levels where you're like, hello, where's my person? I'm amazing. Men suck. Or it could also be, there's something wrong with me. What needs to change? And if you're with someone who's not fully choosing you, then honestly, it means you're not fully choosing yourself. So there's a big distinction between maiden and princess. And then of course, from princess to empress, right? Like a princess is different than a queen or an empress. And you shifting into the empress energy is the prerequisite for your emperor to step in. And so the empress level is you've done the work to go from princess to empress. And then there's going to be an intermediary period where you are the empress, but your emperor hasn't shown up yet. Okay. Now, to be the empress, you know who you are, you know what you want, you speak it. You let go of anything that's not in alignment with that. You know that a relationship is compatibility, like he ticks the boxes and you like to do things together, but you also know the relationship is how you feel. So if you want to feel loved, heard, seen, and chosen when you're with him, then you've done the work to love yourself, see yourself, hear yourself, choose yourself, right? Like you go first. You're in the empress energy first. And your emperor shows up. You're clear on your visions and values. You're living in alignment with them. So then it's really freaking clear when that person shows up because you're living in alignment already with those values. And then when you're in that relationship, everything brings you closer together, even conflict and disagreements. So how does that pertain to when you're single? Well, you're not afraid of conflict. You're not afraid of disagreement. You're not afraid of speaking your truth. You don't have the avoidant attachment style where you're going to run when things get hard, or you don't have the anxious attachment style where you're like, oh my God, he's going to break up with me if we get in a fight. So I'm just going to stuff it under the rug and not talk about it. You no longer worry about conflict or fighting because you know how to handle it and you know you've picked the person that you're a teammate with and it's not going to separate you. You feel safe with him. He feels safe with you, and you're the true power couple. And I was trying to find representations of Disney movies that had like a healthy version of love because a lot of them kind of have the unhealthy version and they paint the picture of like happily ever after and once you meet the guy, yay, you're happy. No, right? Like I think about Beauty and the Beast. They both had to learn and grow and evolve and move through their shit in order to be together. Jasmine and Aladdin, same thing. Shrek and Fiona, same thing. The Incredibles power couple, same thing, right? Like I wanted you to really, and you can create your own representation of what a power couple would be, but it's two people who have gone through a journey individually and then together. They see each other for the truth of who they are, right? Like if you think of Aladdin, he was presenting falsely. But it wasn't until his true self appeared and they had those honest conversations that it actually worked out, right? Shrek and Fiona, he thought he wasn't good enough for her. She had feelings for him, but was like, princess can't be with an ogre, right? And so it wasn't until they came to the truth of who they are and what they wanted, and they were able to see beyond the illusion of what they thought they wanted. For example, right? Like Belle was able to see beyond the Beast. Beast was able to love and accept himself. And on and on and on and on and on. So these are the 4 levels. So let's hear it in the chat box. Which level do you most identify with right now today? Spinster, maiden, princess, empress. And there's zero judgment. You might feel spinster today, maiden tomorrow, princess the next day, empress the next. Like we are women. We shift, we change, we shape shift, we have feelings, we have emotions, depending if you're in a relationship or dating, if you just had a great date or a horrible date or a breakup, like it will affect where you're at today. And so I want to remind you, things can always shift and change. And depending how much personal development work you've done on yourself, I will say the quicker it will be for you to get through the different levels. All right, princess with a little maiden. Ooh la la, maiden princess, yeah. And that makes a lot of sense, right? This is where the majority of people are. No, this is where 100% of my clients are. Because if they're spinster, they're certainly not hiring a love coach. And if they're empress, like they've got it all figured out and their person is right there or just about right there. So yeah, Princess Maiden, 100% beautiful. And I would say you're all correct. Truly, you're here. And we all have our shit and relationship stuff. So let's talk about how to move through the levels. Because nothing changes if nothing changes, right? Like it can be tempting to think, oh, this will magically fix itself. Okay, how? Like if you haven't changed, and I've had clients who have geographically moved locations because they're like, oh, well, it's just because I live in Seattle. But if I move to Denver, for example, I have a woman right now who's in Vietnam and she's moving to Dubai. She's like, must be a better pool of men in Dubai. And I was like, listen up, honey. Yeah, there might be more men in Dubai, but the reality is you bring yourself with you everywhere you go. And so don't deceive yourself and think this will just magically get better if I don't do anything to change. And I would highly advise you not to move locations simply because there's more men there. I've had clients do that. That's not the solution. You bring yourself with you wherever you go. And so one thing I do want to say is one of my favorite quotes from a past client, Jen, who says, this shit works because it does. And that's why I can stand here so confidently saying, I know my magnetic femme process works. It will work for any woman who's ready to apply it and does apply it. That's why I say, I know none of you are in your spinster era. You wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be interested in doing the work. You'd still be the victim blaming men. But if you're in the princess and maiden, which is the women I work with, which is why I wanted you to self-identify, then I want you to know confidently that everything I share with you will work for you. Magnetic dating works. It's a process I've taught my clients for the last 7 years because dating is the precursor to relationship. So you have to master the process of dating before you can get into the relationship. All right. So from 1 to 2, which again, I don't really think any of you are there, but you stop blaming everybody else for what's going on in your life and you take personal responsibility for your past. And you realize that you are the constant in every single one of your relationships. Sure, people might have been shitty to you. Horrible stuff might have happened. That asshole might have cheated on you, 100%. However, what can you learn from that relationship? What were the red flags you ignored? Where did you need to set boundaries? Where were you perhaps so desperate for love? Where were you maybe immature in your speech and how you showed up? Where you weren't ready for the relationship? Maybe you were pulled away, closed down, weren't willing to be physically intimate. And so that's why he had to get his needs met anywhere else, right? Like the sooner you go about taking personal responsibility, the sooner you can go about creating what it is that you want in your dating and love life. Because the victim mentality is disempowering. There's nothing you can do, right? It's all men are assholes. It's online dating. It's my town, right? But when you take responsibility for everything, well, then that means you learn your lessons, you level up, you don't have to learn them again, and you take responsibility for having what you want. You look for the patterns, right? If you experience the same type of relationship over and over and over again, but just with a different guy with a different face, then I have to lovingly tell you that you're the pattern. It's not the guys. You're the magnet. I had a client once, it's like, I'm a magnet for the shitheads. I'm like, okay, great reflection. So what inside of you needs to shift and change? Is it who you're picking? Is it different conversations? Is it a part of you that's unhealed? Whatever it is. And I just applauded her self-awareness of like, I'm the magnet. I'm the problem. There's 8 billion people on the planet. Why do you keep attracting in the same type of human? Right? And so someone that's leveling up is really starting to see this of like, oh, I'm the pattern. I'm the consistent. So you look for the lessons, you learn, you think, you act differently, you level up. You might get different lessons that are just as challenging, but you learn them. You move beyond them. You don't learn the same lessons over again. You forgive your ex and your past experiences. You stop following toxic accounts. You follow healthy advice pages like my Instagram at Manifest with Emyrald, for example. You focus on you and what fills up your love cup. self-love, right? This really helps us move beyond the anxious or avoidant attachment styles when we're putting the emphasis on ourselves. When we're focusing on being confident and happy in our lives, that's very magnetic when we're dating. You speak differently to men. You open up your eyes and heart to the possibility of good men in the world. You stop generalizing and making all men out to be bad because you had one or two or three or even 10 bad experiences with men. So this is how you start to level up to the next level, right? And then you become optimistic and you're like, okay, I'm optimistic. I'm ready to find love. Now, you might still, though, have anxious avoidant attachment styles. You might still be scared to be alone. And so you've got the friends with benefits or sleeping with the married guy, which no judgment, I've been there, right? Like you still have some work to do, let's just say. So to go from maiden to princess, then you're working deeper on healing your anxious or avoidant attachment style. You're learning how to recognize it when it flares up. So I've had both, definitely, and we tend to go between both. So to acknowledge when my avoidant attachment style comes up and I just want to run, I'm like, no, be present, be communicative, be expressive. Or when my anxious attachment style flares up and I'm just like, oh my God, why is he not calling? Why is he not texting? What did I do? What did I say? What's wrong with me? Like, I know how to self-soothe and come back to center and not make it all about him and the relationship. So this is when you're really starting to learn these deeper levels of self-awareness and how to be by yourself, how to act secure when it comes to dating and relationships and all relationships, even friendships too. You definitely let go of the friends with benefits. You stop pining over your ex. You realize he was a step on your journey. He had lessons to teach you. You let go of any relationship, any person that really isn't a fit for what you want, right? And that's hard to do. I'm not going to lie. You create an abundant mindset. You know, there's plenty of amazing men out there or women, whoever you're interested in, to create a life with, because there are. The abundant mindset is so freaking important. And I just did this on my Instagram story today, right? So the lack mindset is, I'll give you two examples. One, I feel like a unicorn searching for my mate. I'm so amazing. Men at my level don't exist. That's a lack mindset. The other lack mindset is there's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I can't have what I want, or even all the good ones are taken too, right? And so those are both lack mindset. Instead, and again, I shared this on my story, I think about a past group coaching client, Malaysia. She had the mindset of, if I'm manifesting him, he's manifesting me. If I'm getting ready for him, he's getting ready for me. If I'm doing the work, he's doing the work, right? So she's seen it through the eyes of abundance of like, he's my match. I'm getting ready for him. He's getting ready for me. I'm manifesting him. He's manifesting me. And so shifting into that abundant mindset is non-negotiable. Because if you believe in lack, then it's, well, there's only one person for me, or my ex got away, or I can't let go of this relationship that doesn't really serve me because what if I can't do any better? What if there's nobody better out there? What if I'm going to be alone and single forever? And this is why really working on self-love from level 1 to 2 or even 2 to 3 is so important, because I want you to be to a space. And this is probably on the slide from 3 to 4. But the truth is, to really get your person, and this has to do with dating, I promise you this, you need to be happily single, confident in who you are and what you want. You need to be in a space where if I'm alone for the rest of my life, that's okay. Now, this isn't the same energy or mindset as, well, fuck it, it hasn't worked out, so I'll just give up now. That's completely different than the acceptance of, if I am single for the rest of my life, how am I going to ensure that I'm the happiest version of myself, that I'm living my life for me? And I can tell you, when my clients shift to that mindset, that's when the guy steps in within a month or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, maybe even up to a year later. But then what they all say is, it was perfect timing. Couldn't have met him a day sooner. And so I realize it is hard to get to that space, but it's completely possible, because that's the work I do with my clients. And so that's going to be leveling up from 2 to 3 and 3 to 4, really being happy by yourself. That's more from the 3 to 4. And so here you start to understand your triggers, your wounds, you work on healing them, you work on communication, you work on boundaries. You stop making the relationship your source of happiness and you focus on what makes you happy instead. You increase the self-love, the self-worth, the self-confidence. You start to understand truly what are your needs and desires, and you ask for it. You don't feel bad or guilty for having needs or desires because your needs are valid and your desires are valid. Instead, it's about finding the right fit, the person who's able and willing to meet your needs and desires, and then to have the courage to let go of anybody who can't meet you there. That's part of the process of leveling up. And then to level up from 3 to 4. This is the big one, right? So remember, I said that when you're at a 4, yes, you've met your person or you're ready for your person. Because there's going to be that space between I truly am ready for that relationship and you getting the relationship. And there might be some relationships that you thought were the one, but they weren't. And so that's when you go back. Okay, what was the lesson here? Were there any patterns that I needed to heal? What did this show me about me? Maybe I was compromising, settling. I have had the year of relationships, as some of you know this year, the year of breakups, as some of you know this year. But I'm still looking at everything through the lens of, okay, I'm getting closer, abundance mindset. What is this showing me and teaching me? Coachable mindset, learning mindset, leveling up mindset. I'm figuring out quicker. Like I've gone through a lot of relationships this year. Why? Because I'm figuring it out quicker. Not a fit, not a fit, not a fit. However, it takes a couple of months really of dating someone before you can figure it out. So it might be all great honeymoon phase for the first couple of months, but then the masks come down and your trauma comes to the surface. And are we really compatible to meet each other's needs and desires? Does our trauma play nicely? Maybe, maybe not. And so part of being in that Empress energy, you're going to go back and forth between 3 and 4 sometimes, because you might have to go back to the 3, right? The abundant mindset, understanding your triggers, learning your lessons, acting in a secure way. And then from 3 to 4, you're getting crystal clear in what you want in life and love. And part of that process is dating multiple men, maybe at once or maybe one after the other. That's how we learn. You don't learn by being single, you learn by being in a relationship. And so that's why I also want to help kill the stereotype of one person forever, happily ever after. It's like, no, that's not how it goes. Some people met their person early on in life. But I promise you, they've had to do work to maintain that relationship. You develop the certainty that you can have whatever it is that you want without having to settle, which means you're probably going to have to go through a lot of pretty good relationships with pretty great men that just can't fully meet you there. I would say you're also excited about doing the work and following my proven processes to manifest your person. Like there has to be that level of like, okay, I'm ready, let's go, right? It's like if you wanted to lose weight, there's that, okay, I'm ready, let's go. I'm hiring the trainer, I'm going to the gym, like whatever it is. So there definitely has to be what do I want to say? There definitely, sorry, my otter leaving a comment distracted me. There definitely has to be, that's why I say don't ask your questions till the end. There definitely has to be this motivation, right? There definitely has to be this willingness and excitement about doing the work. You heal your trust issues, your traumas, your insecurities. I'm not going to say you're 100% healed because we're human beings. And when we're in a relationship is when our shit comes to the surface for us to see. And ideally, in a conscious relationship, we help each other work through it. And when you're single, your opportunity is to work on it by yourself. And so that's why I love working with single women. I view it as preventative work, right? Like, let me give you the tools so that you can be self-aware to work on your shit when it comes up. And then you have the tools for when it comes up with your partner, because it will. Of how you can be responsible for your triggers, your emotions, your feelings. You can communicate it in a healthy way. And because like attracts like, and because you've set boundaries and you're no longer, let's say, anxious about the person leaving you or you leaving them or lack mentality, you're also able to walk away from someone who can't meet you there, or not even engage with someone who can't meet you there. You are dating with intention. You have your relationship vision in mind. And so when you're back at a 2, you might just be dating to fill a void because you're tired of being alone or you're sad and lonely. Versus when you're in a level 4, you're like, I know what I want. I know where I'm going. And I can call myself out when I've dated in the past where I wasn't really clear on what I wanted. I didn't know for the longest time that I wanted marriage. And so I didn't have that level of clarity and certainty. And the men I dated also didn't want marriage. And it took me leveling up and getting super clear now at this stage of my life that that's what I want. So I'm incredibly discerning when I date to ensure that that's there. And also everything else that I've learned about myself in relationship, about who I am and what I want. And so this is why if we're always learning and growing and we're self-aware, we level up to that Empress level and we're able to get that Empress level relationship. But there will be a bit of a journey along the way, the hero's journey, so to speak. You're willing to have hard conversations. You work on your communication and vulnerability. To have a lifelong relationship, you need to be able to have the hard conversations. You need to be vulnerable and in your heart. You need to move beyond that fear of loss and rejection and being alone. Otherwise, you might settle. You probably will settle. You say no over and over and over again to someone who's not a fit. And that's hard. I'm not going to lie, it is hard. And yet you still maintain your faith and optimism. That's the Empress energy, right? I talk a lot about getting your high caliber match, but part of you being high caliber is you're committed to your vision. You have the hope. You have the faith. You know you're going to get it. It's like if you think about a job, you're super confident in your job and your career, and you're like, I can get the promotion. I can get the raise. I can apply myself. I can make this happen. And I've had to use this analogy with my clients. I'm like, let's take that exact same mindset for dating and love, because that's the mindset you need to be in. Like, I've got this. Of course, I've got this. I might need some help and support. I'll hire Emyrald, or not. I've got this. I'll figure it out on my own. That's okay too. But having that mindset and mentality is instrumental to really stepping into that Empress energy. And then the last thing is you master the high caliber date accelerator process, which I will share with you next Tuesday. And I said I was going to share it with everybody who joins live, but I also realized with all the different time zone differences that that wouldn't really be fair. And that's why I specifically made that call earlier in the day for us in the US and more doable for those of you in Europe or in a different time zone. So keep your eyes open on your emails for that. All right, my loves. And so now we finally get to go into the questions piece. And before we do, you should have these emails in your inbox, but just a quick reminder, tomorrow is removing your hidden obstacles to love. So seeing your blind spots. We can't see our own blind spots. That's why they're called blind spots. And so we'll get into what are your hidden obstacles, how to identify them and remove them. Part 3 on Thursday. All right. What do you need to do to get some high quality dates over the weekend, perhaps even? Wouldn't that be fun? So that way, next Tuesday, we can go into, well, how did the dating go? We'll do live hot seat coaching, Q&A. I'll teach you my high caliber date accelerator method, which speeds up the process of meeting your man without the typical exhaustion that comes from dating. And even dating great guys, it can still be emotionally draining. So I want to help you speed up the process. So that's what we've got coming up for the rest of the week. So now let's go to questions. So let me see how amazing I am in Zoom and see if I can, there we go. So you're able to unmute yourself, you're able to put yourself on video, and you're also able to type any questions into the chat box. So one of the benefits of being here live, my loves, is that now we can go into questions that you have. Preferably, I would like them to be on this that I shared today. What level are you at? And how can you get to the Empress level? All right, drop your favorite emoji in the chat box if you're still here with me. I can see you all, but it's very quiet. Don't be shy. All right, we got a smiley face. We got a heart. Okay. 2 people are awake. And I get it. We multitask. Still here. No questions. Okay. Dancing emoji. That's one of my favorites as well. Okay. So are there any questions on this process? Are there any questions on, okay, Emerald, but how? Like, how would this specifically apply to me? Oh, Monica, I love that emoji. Okay. Can you share more about the happily single piece? Absolutely. And I love that question. All right. So this is, I'm going to say, the hard part, because as women, the majority of us are much more feminine energy based. And when you're much more feminine energy based, it means you really do more so crave that relationship. Or if you're a woman at a certain age, oh, hold on, there we go. Or if you're a woman at a certain age, then it might be marriage and babies. And so even more so, you're like, where's my person, right? But what I can share with you, and some of you might know this example of a past client, Lauren, she rushed into marriage with the wrong guy because she was ready to have babies and start a family and create that trajectory that she wanted. Now, the happily ever after is that she hired me, she divorced the guy, and within a month met the right man for her, that she's married to, that she has a baby with, and she's pregnant with another one along the way, like the right fit for her. Now, the work that we did together got her to this place where she said, Emerald, I realized I would rather be happy and single than with the wrong guy, let alone having a baby with the wrong guy. And she said, and furthermore, I realized I would rather be happy in partnership, childless, than with the wrong guy with a child. The how process. Now, that's beyond the scope of what I could teach you in a video right here and now. What I can share with you, though, is that is the scope of my coaching programs, right? Like that is what the group coaching is about. That is what the private coaching is about. How do you get to this place where you are happy on your own? You can be happy on your own and dating. You can be happy on your own and looking for love. You can be happy on your own and not dating, but know that you will one day. Like 3.5 years ago, when I started my around the world tour, I was single and I wasn't dating, but I knew one day there would be that big love again in my life. And so what I did for the last 3 years was focus on me. What makes me happy? What are the different areas of my life that I could clean up? And even when I came back to the States after my around the world tour and I'd gained some weight, I was like, okay, I want to focus on my fitness, my diet, and my exercise and create a really strong, vibrant community here in Denver. And I joined a yoga studio and I joined a co-working space and really just made my life as vibrant as I could. I want you to be in that energy because I want you to be either so happy you don't realize the guy's not there. And if he never shows up, doesn't matter because you're so happy. However, that's not what happens. What happens, and I've seen this for every single one of my clients over the last 7 years, what happens is when you get so incredibly happy, you're magnetic. Men are drawn to you, especially the ones who are healed and want a committed relationship because they're like, oh, I will have what she is having, right? We just don't get to control the timeline. I've been single for years, but I maintain that Empress energy. I continue to work on myself. I continue to look for the lessons. I continue to look of how can I tweak and make every day the best it could be with the ingredients that I have. That's a high caliber woman that men want to be with, of course. that have that positive growth mentality, that are willing to communicate when things get hard, that take personal responsibility for their happiness. The man, the relationship is meant to be the icing on top, the cherry on top of the icing, let's just say. And so the problem is when we put the emphasis on the guy, on the relationship to fill up our love cup, is that it's not lasting. The guy could go away, the relationship could go away, and there goes the love. And so that's why it's so important that we focus on our own happiness, because it's created within. Our love is within. No one can take it away from us. The relationship can just add to it. It can just magnify it. And that's what a relationship does. It reflects back to you. So it will reflect back more love, or it will reflect back the areas of your life where you're hiding. You put a wall up, you're anxious, you're afraid, you're codependent, cut and run, whatever it is. Relationships will also help you see that. And that's why I say, look at it from the perspective of, what is this showing me? What can I learn here to continuously level up to the Empress level? Okay, Cassie, not to complain. I went on a few dates and the guys didn't energize me to motivate me. I'm good being on my own. I still want to be open to connection. Yeah. So do I just wait until I get excited? Okay. Great question. There's a lot of human beings out in the world. All of them won't be a fit until the one person is, which means we've just got to get really good at telling good stories to ourselves. Everything's a story. What's the story you make up? Men suck. It's never going to work. Or not my person, not my person. I'm doing the work. I'm getting ready. I believe he's out there. Of course I can have love. Just like, of course I can have a promotion. Of course I can make more money. Of course I can move states. Of course I can dye my hair. Of course I can change anything in my life that I want to. But if I can't change it right now, what can I change? I can change the story. So yes, Cassie, be open to connection. Keep doing the work that you're doing. Don't make up limiting stories about yourself or men. Maintain your openness to connection. Now, the whole excited piece, well, that's a topic for another time, because oftentimes when we get super excited, it can be a trauma bond. It can be that codependency or that anxious avoidant attachment. So it's a little bit tricky to say, just wait until you get excited. Because if we're used to the excitement, which is connected to, let's say, the trauma, then what's going to feel weird is actually the calmness. So this is very individual and unique for every single woman, which is why it's kind of beyond the scope of a group call right now, but certainly something that can be dug into deeper one-on-one, right? With everyone's individual patterns that they need to work through. For me, I had a pattern where it's like fire, 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 like, oh my God, this is so amazing. And then it would fizzle out. So I've had to learn to trust more of the stability, not necessarily the huge sparks or fireworks in the beginning, but to get to know someone, to see if we're compatible, how our communication styles work. Do we want the same things? And sometimes the traction grew and other times it didn't. So there's definitely a lot that we could dig into. All right. So if there's any more questions, please type them into the chat box. To summarize today, and yes, there will be a replay. You can go back and watch it again. Magnetic dating. Step one, day one, we had to get into first you understanding where you're at. And knowing that part of magnetism is you being confident, is you being in that Empress energy. You've healed a lot of your stuff. You're clear in who you are and what you want. You're able to communicate it. There isn't a wall around your heart. You can be vulnerable and expressive, right? Like being in that energy. Men do want confident women, and men also want a woman who's vulnerable. So understanding how to dance between the two energies, when to be in the masculine, when to be in the feminine. That energy, that Empress energy, is very magnetic, and it will attract in men also at that level. And it will repel men who are not. And you will be able to see clearly with open eyes and have discernment around men that are able to meet you there or not. And I know you all know this, but just a quick disclaimer, I speak a lot to heterosexual women looking for heterosexual men. However, all of this applies. Man, woman, gay, straight, non-binary, whatever. All of these tools apply. In order for you to be in your Empress or Emperor energy and be with someone who's also at that level. And so tomorrow we'll get into, okay, where are my blocks? Because you've got to self-identify and work through your own blocks so that in part 3, we can go into the strategy. Okay, so now where are these men? How do I find them? How do I date them? All right. Okay, my loves, we're ending perfectly on time. I'm so proud of us, so proud of me for not yapping too much. Live or replay, again, if you have questions or follow-ups after letting this information digest, maybe after watching it again, you can send it via email if you're not able to join us live. And you're also able to send it over email even if you are able to join us live. So your homework for tonight after watching this video is I simply want you to reflect. What level am I at? And what are my top, let's say, 3 to 5 things that I need to work on to get to that Empress level? All of you self-identified Princess Maiden, and I would say that's accurate. That's why you're here. So what are some of your big areas that you know you need to work on? And then tomorrow, we'll get into some of those blind spots, some areas that you might not have known that you need to work on.